Hello students, how are you? So in the previous video of chapter soil we discussed types of soil. Let's take a quick look at that, what were the properties that we discussed, because it is a very important topic. First type of soil that we discussed was a sandy soil, and I told you that it has big particles with large spaces between them. These spaces have air filled with them, so it is well aerated soil. But the nature is that they cannot hold the water. Okay, so the sandy soils are light, aerated and dry in nature. Sandy soils lack much nutrients, hence do not support the diverse growth of the plant. Next type of soil that we discussed was clayey soil. It consists of fine particles which have less spaces between them, but they can hold the water. So we can say that there is not much space between them, but they can absorb water. So they are not well aerated like sandy soils, but can absorb water. So they are able to for the growth of the different kinds of plants. Third one, loamy soil. Loamy soil contains a similar amount of large and small particles in them. They are combination of sandy, clay and silty soil. They also contain humus. They can hold water in appropriate amounts and therefore support the growth of plants. They are also called agricultural soil because of their fertility and appropriate texture. They contain good amount of calcium and have a high pH level. Okay. Then next was silt soil. The silt soil particles are smaller than that of sandy soils but larger than clayey soil. They can hold water to some extent because of its fine quality. They are generally found near the water bodies like river banks and lakes. They are rich in nutrients, highly fertile and hence are suitable for agriculture. They are often mixed with other soils to improve the fertility of the soil. Clear, students? So these were the different types of soils. Now this is the diagram of sand, silt and clay with which it is given the particle size. Okay, so you can understand that we have already discussed that which soil is larger and which is smaller in size. The particle size of sandy soil you can say 0.05 mm to 2 mm. The particle size of silt is 0.002 mm to 0.05 mm, means smaller than sand, and clay soil it is less than 0.002 mm, means it is the smallest of the three. Okay, largest particle size are of sand soil. Again you can see the soil, the particles are also like looking like big particles, whereas in silt the particles are small and the clay are further smaller than both of them. Okay, so these are the three kinds of the soil with their particle size. Now next topic that we are going to start in the chapter soil is properties of soils. Okay, there will be some important properties that are that describes a soil of a particular place. Okay, this we will be discussing one by one. So the first one is percolation of water through the soil. What is percolation? Percolation can be defined as the property of the soil by which it allows the flow of water through it. The rate at which water percolates or moves through soil may vary in different kinds of soils. Some soils absorb water while others allow it to flow through them. The rate of percolation can be calculated by a formula is given. You can see the percolation rate in milliliter per minute. It is given by amount of water divided by percolation time. Okay, so what is percolation? It can be defined as a property of the soil by which it allows a flow of water through it. Means the property of the soil about that how much water it can hold or how much water it can allow to through it to pass or flow. That is a percolation rate. Okay, and the rate through which we can say water percolates or water moves or water absorbed is different for different types of soil. Okay, we discussed in the previous topic the types of soil that different types of soils have different water holding capacity. So this was the same thing, the percolation of water. Okay, so some soils absorb water while others allow it to flow through them. The rate of percolation can be calculated by this formula. The formula is amount of water in ml divided by percolation time in minute. So the unit of percolation rate becomes ml per minute. Clear, students? So this is percolation of water through soil. Very important. See, for the places where agriculture is the main occupation, for there this percolation rate depends is very important. Okay, so there the soil, because you know different types of soil require different types of water. If you belong to a family that has a land, agricultural land, then you can consult that different what kind of soil required what amount of water. Okay, then you will be knowing that different types of soil require different types of water quantity. Okay, students. See, this one is the percolation of water. You can see the water is there and then it moves down to the soil. Clear? Next one is moisture. Moisture is the amount of water that is present in the soil. Even a dry soil has some amount of moisture in the air. However, the clay soil has the highest content of moisture. Okay, what is moisture? The amount of water that is present in the soil. It is saying that even a dry soil has some amount of water or moisture in the air, but that moisture is very less, okay, as compared. And however, the clay soil has the highest content of the moisture. We have discussed the moisture when we discussing about the climate and the weather. I was telling you that moisture is the amount of water vapor present in the air, and you know, because in between the soil particles there is air also. So if that air contains moisture, yes, the air contains moisture. Some of the air contains more moisture and some of them contains less. Okay, it may depend. Question is, why air above farmland appears shimmering during the daytime? We know that soil contains water. Due to sunlight, the water from soil begins to evaporate and turns into water vapor. This water vapor, when reflects the sunlight, appears as if it is shining, and hence the air above the soil makes the land look shimmery. Okay, what happens again? See, soil contains water, and due to sunlight, that water from the soil begins to evaporate, and that turns into water vapor. And the water vapor reflects that sunlight which is coming from the sun. It reflects and it appears as if it is shining. Okay, so that's why the land look shimmery. So this one, another property of the soil, that is the moisture. First one was percolation of water, second one is the moisture. Third property is absorption. Every soil has a water absorption capacity which depends upon how porous the soil is. Clayey and loamy soils are most porous and hence can retain water in large quantity. Very important point this one, that clayey and loamy soil are the most porous. I told you what is porous. Porous means small pores are present in, very small holes, very fine holes are present in the soil. So if they are porous, they can retain water in large quantity. So that is why the crops can grow over the soil. Sandy soil, on other hand, do not absorb water and hence do not support much vegetation. Clear, students? So very important point this one. Absorption is a very important property of the soil. Every soil has a different water absorption capacity depending on the size of the particle, and we discussed that clay and the loamy soil are the most porous, so they retain water in the large quantity. Okay, that is why crops can grow over these soils, and sandy soils on the other hand do not absorb water. Clear, students? Next property is texture. The texture is the size of particle of the soil, and we all know that different kinds of soil have a different texture. We have discussed it in the types of the soil. Next property is color. Different soils have different colors as well. This is because of the minerals and nutrients present in the soil. For example or instance, some soils are black in color because of the presence of humus and minerals, while some soils are red in color because they have iron in large quantity in them. Okay, when we are discussing about the horizon of the soil, if you might remember, then what we discussed, that the topmost layer, or you can say the A horizon, it has a large amount of humus, so that is why it is dark in color as compared to the soil that is below it. Okay, so that's why some soils are black in color because of the presence of humus and minerals, and the red color of the soil is due to presence of large iron in them. Okay, so this is another property of the soil that is related to the color, and we all know that the color of the soil depends on the region where the soil is present. Clear, students? So you can say these are different types of soil with different color textures. Next is pH of the soil. Now what is pH? Soils can have different pH depending upon their acidic, basic or neutral nature. Based upon the pH, different types of crops grow in the soil. When we were studying the chapter acid, bases and salt, I told over there the pH. Okay, So if there was a certain pH range, then we can tell whether the substance is acidic, basic or neutral. For example, if the pH is between 0 to 6, then it is acidic, and if it is between 14, less than 14 and more than 7, then it is basic, and at 7 the substance is neutral. Okay, so the pH of soil, it depends upon the acidic, basic or neutral nature, and based upon the pH, different types of crops grow in the soil. Seventh and last next property of soil is air content. Since soil is made up of particles of different sizes, these particles can be loosely bound or tightly bound. The air often occupies the space in between these particles. This allows life to sustain in the soil, such as microorganism. Okay, so this is about the air content in the soil, that air content or how much air is present in the soil. I told you in the sandy soil that they are large particles, they have large spaces between them, so they can accumulate large amount of, you can say, or good amount of air between them, so they are well aerated. I told you the word well aerated. So well aerated means that a lot of amount of air is present over there. Okay, and if we talk about another type of soil where the size is smaller, then we can say, or you can say, that less amount of air is absorbed by it. Okay, so these are some properties of soil. Okay beta. So these were the different properties of the soil that we have discussed. Okay, so these are the some soil properties and of different types of soil. For example, if property discuss water holding capacity, we discussed that sandy soil cannot hold much water, but silt, it can hold medium to high amount of water, and clay can absorb very high amount of water. Drainage rate means the flow of water is high on sandy because it cannot hold the water, so it is very high drainage rate. Silt, low to medium, and clay, very low. Okay, see, water holding capacity, if it will be high, then the drainage rate will be low, and if water holding capacity is low, then the drainage rate will be high. Next is cohesion between the particles. Cohesion means the attractive force between the particle. As I told you that in the sand the particles are very large in size, so the cohesion force, or you can say cohesion between the particles, is very low. In silt it's in medium to high, and clay it is very high. Organic material content, in sandy it is low, in silt soil it is medium to high, and in clay it is also medium to high. Shrink and swell potential, about it is that in the sand it is low, in silt it is medium to high, and in clay it is high. Okay, so these are the different properties of soils. Soil and crops. I told you that the nature of the crops that grow on the soil depend on the nature of the soil. Okay, so different kinds of soils are found in different regions because of the following factors that decide the soil structure of that place. The factors are temperature, humidity, rainfall, sunlight, winds. If you remember, these are the same factors that determine the weather, or say climate, of that place. Okay, temperature, humidity, rainfall, sunlight, and winds. The type of crops that will grow in the soil depends upon these factors as well as the properties of soil. Definitely, because if for example, if you say that a a crop need large amount of water, so where it will want to grow, where the soil can absorb more water and the the rainfall is also high. Okay, so both the factors will combine to the growth of that crop. So these the type of crops will grow in the soil depends upon these factors as well as the properties of the soil. Now some of the types, the type of soil and the crops grown in it. In sandy soil you can say potato, lettuce, corn and peppers. In clay soil, the crops grown are sprouts, broccoli, kale, beans, cabbage. And in the loamy soil the crops grown are apples, carrots, tomatoes and cucumber. Okay, so these are the different types of soil and the different types of crops grown in the soil. Clear, students? And definitely these all depend on the properties that we discussed of the different types of soils. Clear, students? Okay, students, so the last topic is, what is soil erosion? You might have heard this term very often, soil erosion. Okay, what happens when the soil gets eroded or you can say moves away from that place, that is termed as soil erosion. So we can definitely tell that it is because of the movement of water or heavy wind. This leads to the soil erosion. Okay, so let's discuss about it. When the top layer of the soil gets removed, it is called soil erosion. Now, next is very important point. The soil erosion mainly occurs when the soil is left loose without vegetation or when deforestation occurs. See what happens, students? These plants and trees, what they do, because their roots are planted well in the soil, so they hold the soil. Okay, so they prevent the erosion of the soil, that they do not allow the soil to get removed. But what is the point? If it is left without vegetation, soil is left loose without vegetation, or when deforestation, what is deforestation? Cutting of the trees. So once the cutting of the trees takes place, so the roots cannot hold now more the soil, and the soil can easily, with the help of water flow, or we can say the heavy wind, the soil can erode. Okay, so this is what soil erosion. In such a situation, strong winds and flowing water or rainwater takes away the topsoil and therefore decreases its quality. Now, what is about decreases its quality? When we were discussing about the horizon or the layers of the soil, what I told you, that the topmost layer is very rich in humus and other nutrients, and it is only responsible for the growth of different types of crops. And if it will be, you can say, removed, then the fertility will definitely decrease. And I told you, to increase the fertility, it takes a long period of time. Okay. Also, this kills the organism living inside the cell, because I told you some organisms are of our use, so they are killed. The roots of the plants and trees keep the soil together and allow several microorganisms to grow and survive there. Therefore, it is always advised to plant more trees and avoid deforestation. Okay, so this is soil erosion. It is very important nowadays to prevent soil erosion, because we know as the population is increasing, so the demand of the food and the crops is also increasing. So to keep check in that, we also need to control the soil erosion. Okay, so that's why it is said that the trees should not be cut, because I told you the reason of the soil erosion. Basic reason is the deforestation, and once there will be less deforestation, then the soil, it is very useful that the plants can easily hold the soil with the help of their roots, and it can prevent the soil erosion. Okay, otherwise the topmost layer of the soil will get removed, and the fertility will get decreased, and the nutrients in the amount will get decreased. The organisms that are helpful for us will die, and ultimately, or you can say eventually, it will result in the loss of the crop. Okay, so this was about what is soil erosion. Read this point bit again, because it is very important. Okay, so I hope, student, that the topic that we discussed today about the first the properties of the soil, okay, then the different types of crops that are grown in the soil, and the soil erosion, I hope it is clear to all of you. And this concludes our chapter. Okay, student, so keep studying, and whatever has been taught to you, please keep making the notes, because it is very important. Okay, so this is the end of the chapter, and revise the content that has been told to you, and stay inside your house and take care. Thank you and have a nice day.